The serene landscape of Pahalgam, a jewel of Kashmir, is known for its breathtaking beauty and tranquil environment. Nestled in the lap of the Himalayas, this picturesque valley has long been a favorite destination for tourists seeking peace and natural splendor. However, this serenity was shattered on April 22, 2025. Militants, allegedly with ties to the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba's the Resistance Front, launched a brutal and coordinated attack. The once peaceful valley was suddenly engulfed in chaos and violence. The militants, heavily armed and well-prepared, unleashed a horrific attack. Their primary targets were Indian tourists who had come to Pahalgam to enjoy its natural beauty and escape the hustle and bustle of city life. The terrorists showed no mercy, indiscriminately firing upon anyone in their path. The aftermath was devastating. The terrorists left a trail of carnage, with buildings reduced to rubble and innocent lives lost. By the time the dust settled, the scale of the tragedy became apparent. 26 innocent lives were lost in the attack, including men, women, and children. The attack sent shockwaves through India, igniting a wave of grief and anger across the nation. Families mourned their loved ones, and communities came together to support each other in this time of immense sorrow. The public outrage was palpable, with citizens demanding swift retribution and justice for the victims. Candlelight vigils were held in cities across India, as people expressed their solidarity with the victims and their families. The picturesque valley, once a symbol of tranquility, had become a grim reminder of the volatile security situation in Kashmir. In response to the attack, security forces were deployed in large numbers to Pahalgam and other parts of Kashmir. The atmosphere was tense, with armed soldiers patrolling the streets and heightened security measures in place. India blamed Pakistan for harboring the perpetrators, pointing to the TRF's known links to Pakistani intelligence agencies. Indian officials were quick to accuse Pakistan of providing support and safe haven to the militants. Press conferences were held, with leaders condemning the attack and vowing to take strong action against those responsible. The political tensions between India and Pakistan, already high, reached a new peak. Pakistan, however, vehemently denied any involvement in the attack. Pakistani officials dismissed the accusations as baseless propaganda, insisting that their country had no role in the violence. The diplomatic tensions between the two nuclear-armed neighbors further escalated, with both sides trading barbs and accusations. The international community condemned the attack in unison, expressing solidarity with India and calling for those responsible to be brought to justice. Leaders from around the world sent their condolences and support, emphasizing the need for a united front against terrorism. The United States, under the Trump administration, reiterated its commitment to fighting terrorism in all its forms. American officials condemned the attack and pledged to support India in its efforts to combat terrorism. The attack served as a stark reminder of the persistent threat of terrorism emanating from the region. The Pahalgam attack cast a long shadow over the already fragile peace in the region. The once bustling streets of Pahalgam were now eerily empty, as fear and uncertainty gripped the valley. The attack underscored the urgent need for a comprehensive and lasting solution to the security challenges in Kashmir, to ensure that such tragedies never happen again. India, reeling from the Pahalgam attack, found itself at a crossroads. The attack had left the nation in shock, with images of the devastation and mourning crowds flooding the media. The public outcry was immediate and intense, demanding swift and decisive action from the government. The Indian government, under immense pressure from its citizens, vowed a firm response. Statements from top officials echoed the sentiment of the nation, promising that those responsible would be brought to justice. After days of mounting pressure and strategic deliberations, the government decided on a course of action that would send a clear message to the perpetrators. In the early hours of May 7, 2025, the Indian government launched Operation Sindoor. This meticulously planned operation involved coordinated missile strikes targeting 9 alleged terrorist camps across the line of control in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The strikes were carried out with precision, aiming to dismantle the infrastructure that supported terrorist activities. At a press conference, Indian military officials emphasized that the strikes were focused, measured, and non-escalatory. They presented maps and satellite images to support their claims, showing the targeted areas and explaining the rationale behind each strike. According to Indian officials, the targets were carefully selected to minimize civilian casualties, a point they stressed repeatedly to the international community. The operation aimed solely at dismantling terrorist infrastructure, avoiding any Pakistani military or government installations. Aerial footage and satellite imagery were used to identify and confirm the locations of the suspected terrorist camps, ensuring that the strikes would be as effective as possible without causing unnecessary harm. In a televised address to the nation, the Indian Prime Minister reiterated the government's commitment to avoiding a full-blown conflict. He stated that the strikes were intended as a clear message of deterrence against further aggression, and that India remained committed to peace and stability in the region. News anchors and analysts discussed the implications of the strikes, with many praising the government's measured response. Pakistan, however, disputed India's claims. In a series of press conferences, Pakistani officials denied the existence of any terrorist camps in the targeted areas, asserting that the strikes had hit civilian settlements instead. They presented their own evidence, including footage of the affected areas, to support their claims. The Pakistani government condemned the strikes as a violation of its sovereignty and vowed to respond at a time and place of its choosing. The Pakistani Prime Minister's statement was met with widespread support within the country, with protests and demonstrations against India erupting in several cities. The international community watched with bated breath as the situation threatened to spiral out of control. Diplomatic efforts were ramped up with urgent meetings at the United Nations and calls for restraint from world leaders. The stakes were high, and the world hoped that cooler heads would prevail to prevent further escalation. In the wake of Operation Sindoor, Pakistan's response was swift and multifaceted. While vehemently denying the existence of terrorist camps within its territory, Pakistan condemned the strikes as an act of aggression and a violation of international law. Pakistan also launched its own counterstrikes, targeting Indian military positions along the line of control. While Pakistan's initial response focused on diplomatic condemnation and limited military retaliation, tensions continued to escalate in the days that followed. Reports emerged of cross-border shelling and small arms fire exchanges along the LOC, resulting in casualties on both sides. The situation remained volatile, with both countries accusing each other of ceasefire violations and stoking tensions. Adding to the complexity, unconfirmed reports surfaced of Pakistani drones violating Indian airspace. While India claimed to have neutralized several drones, the incidents heightened fears of a wider conflict. The possibility of Pakistan resorting to its quid pro quo plus policy, involving attacks on Indian soil, loomed large, raising concerns among security analysts and policymakers alike. The specter of escalation loomed large as tensions between India and Pakistan reached a fever pitch. The border, already a flashpoint, saw an unprecedented military buildup, with both nations deploying additional troops and heavy artillery. The air was thick with uncertainty, and the slightest misstep could ignite a conflict of unimaginable proportions. The situation remained highly volatile, with both sides engaging in a dangerous game of brinkmanship. Military forces were placed on high alert, and the movement of tanks and other military vehicles became a common sight along the border. The world watched with bated breath as the two nuclear-armed neighbors stood on the precipice of war. Experts expressed concerns that miscalculations or misjudgments could quickly escalate into a full-blown conflict, with devastating consequences for the region and beyond. Analysts on news panels debated the potential outcomes, while concerned civilians watched the developments unfold with a sense of dread. The international community called for restraint, but the situation seemed to be spiraling out of control. Historical precedents offered a sobering reminder of the potential for rapid escalation. The subcontinent has witnessed several wars between India and Pakistan since their independence in 1947, each conflict leaving deep scars and unresolved issues. The memories of past wars served as a grim warning of what could happen if diplomacy failed. Previous conflicts, such as the Kargil War of 1999, highlighted the ease with which localized skirmishes could escalate into full-scale wars. The Kargil conflict, fought in the treacherous mountains of Kashmir, resulted in significant casualties on both sides and brought the two nations perilously close to a larger war. The 2001 to 2002 standoff, marked by a massive military buildup and intense diplomatic efforts, demonstrated the ease with which tensions could spiral out of control. The world watched anxiously as the two nations mobilized their forces, fearing that a single miscalculation could lead to a catastrophic conflict. The presence of nuclear weapons on both sides added an alarming dimension to the crisis, amplifying the stakes and raising the specter of a catastrophic conflict. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, which had kept the peace during the Cold War, seemed fragile in the face of such intense hostility. The potential for a nuclear exchange, even if accidental, was a terrifying prospect. Adding to the uncertainty, the recent appointment of General Asim Munir as Pakistan's new Chief of Army Staff introduced a wildcard into the equation. General Munir, known for his hardline stance, brought a new dynamic to the already tense situation. His views on India and his approach to the ongoing tensions were subjects of intense speculation. Munir's stance on India and his willingness to escalate the conflict remained largely unknown, leaving analysts to speculate about his potential course of action. His previous statements and military background suggested a tough approach, but how this would translate into action was uncertain. The unpredictability added another layer of complexity to the already volatile situation. The possibility of Pakistan resorting to asymmetric warfare, utilizing its network of militant proxies, further complicated the security calculus. These groups, operating with a degree of deniability, could carry out attacks that might provoke a severe response from India. The use of such tactics had the potential to ignite a broader conflict, drawing in regional and global powers.